Hey everyone! Today we're continuing on with our hand lettering series. This is the third video in the series, and if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, I would suggest you go watch those first. But I also have a video in addition to those first 2 parts, which was faux calligraphy, and that's a really great way to start as well. So start with the faux calligraphy, then videos 1 and 2, and then move on to this video. And I'll leave those linked up in the cards as well as down in the description of the video. So in today's video, we're going to be learning some lowercase lettering. And because this video ended up being a little bit longer than I expected, I asked you guys if you'd rather have one longer, approximately 30-minute video, or 2 slightly shorter videos, about 20 minutes and 15 minutes. And you guys voted for 2 shorter videos, so this is going to be the first part of the lowercase letters, and then I will upload the second part of the lowercase letters very shortly. So keep an eye out for that one, and then I'll be covering uppercase letters in another separate video, which will come again not too long from now. And just before we get started, I just want to remind you guys that if you do like this video, make sure give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'd really love if you guys would take a moment to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you guys get notified each time I am uploading a new video. So now I've said all that stuff, let's just get right into the hand lettering tutorial. In the last video, I went over some of the terminology and the line structure that is used in hand lettering and modern calligraphy, and today I'm going to expand on that just a little bit, so just a couple more lines so that we can get into our ascenders and descenders and start doing some more interesting hand lettering. So today we're going to, in addition to the terminology, start learning our letters, and I'm going to be showing you lowercase letters today. And I think just to keep this video a little bit shorter, I'll do the uppercase letters in the next video. So let's just go over the lines really quickly. So right here we have our baseline. So this is the line where all of your letters sit. And if you've watched the previous videos, then you know this. So this is your baseline right here. Then we have your X height line right here, which is where most of your lowercase letters will reach to on this line. So the top of your lowercase letters will hit that line. Then you have your cap height line. And as the name suggests, this is where your capital, the tops of your capital letters will hit this line. So these are the lines we learned in the first video, and we went over them in the second video. And today we're going to be working with our ascender line, which is this top line. So the ascender line extends just slightly higher than the cap height, and this is where the tops of your lowercase letters that have ascenders, which is why it's called an ascender line, such as F's and T's and things like that. This is where they will hit, just slightly above your cap height. And then alternately to your ascender line, you have your descender line, which is this line at the bottom. This is where all of your lowercase letters that have descenders will hit. So letters such as a G or J and things like that. So this is how far down your letters descend to. And sorry that I didn't put more effort into making my writing a little more neat like I did in the last video. Maybe that bothers some people, maybe not, but you get the information. So these are the lines that we're going to need today. So for this tutorial today, I'm going to be using my water brush. You guys can use your script markers, hand lettering markers, like these Tombows here if you like. I just, as I said in my other videos, I prefer the effect and the look of my letters when I use my water brush. It's just all in the tools that you guys prefer, and I will have links in the description of this video to these markers here because they are really great markers for beginners, as well as the water brushes and some watercolor paints and stuff like that. So let's get right into the fun part, which is learning our lowercase letters. I'm going to be showing you guys one way, or I might try a couple of ways to do your letters because there's not just one way to learn lettering. There's not just one style. And I might go over a couple as we go. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm not going to start with A, B, C, and down the alphabet. I'm going to start showing you guys the letters that have ascenders and descenders first, and then I'll move on to the more simple letters that would just sit within the X height. Just because the point of this video is learning your ascenders and descenders, and secondary is learning the rest of your alphabet. So the first letter in the alphabet where we meet either an ascender or a descender is B, which has an ascender line. As I said, there's a couple of ways you can do B's. I will show you two ways. You can go with a simple line, thick downstroke, and then thin upstroke, and then into a thick downstroke, and then a curl to come back out. Or you can get even a little bit more modern and have an entry stroke, which normally starts about halfway between the X height line and the cap line and comes from the outside of your letter. You can start it right at the X height if you want. So you come in with a thin upstroke and a curve down to a thick downstroke, and then back up thin, thick, and then thin with a little curve. I'm not sure if you can see that perfectly well, the color I've chosen here. There. So these are two styles of B's. It's just all in sort of what you prefer. If you want a little bit more modern, a little bit more ornate look, you can go for the letters that have more loops and stuff like that, or you can go with the simple B's. And you can even mix and match them a little bit here and there. And as you can see, both of them hit your ascender line. These are ascenders. So the next letter is a D, and there's also a couple of ways you can do a D. So you start your D's down between your baseline and your X height on the right side of your letter. So you go up with a thin upstroke, thick downstroke, and then back up to thin. And I like to finish my letters kind of crossing over that starting point. And then the first way is just a simple D where you just have a thick downstroke and you can curve it a bit to give it a little bit of style. And then the second way you can do a D is starting out the same way, thin upstroke, thick downstroke, thin upstroke. And when you get here, you're going to continue in a thin upstroke out and create a loop back down with a thick downstroke and then back up. So it's a little bit more ornate, has a little bit more style to it, so you can choose to do either or. Next is F, which has both an ascender and a descender line. So, and again, two ways to do an F. You can start by having just a simple downstroke down to your descender line all the way down. That's quite a long line. And then you come back up to your base height, and then like that. You can also do, like I said, a little bit more of a modern take on it with an entry stroke, which comes up thin, curves around, and down to a thick downstroke all the way down to your descender line, and then back up the same way as we did with the other F. So two different Fs. So next we have G. So you start it on the right side going in thin upstroke, thick downstroke, thin upstroke, and you can finish it there, and then down, and then back up into a thin upstroke. And again, going backwards this time, you can do your G's a little bit more ornate looking if you want by just adding an entry stroke down towards your baseline, sort of in between. You just come up, down, and then back down. And again, H, you can do the very simple thick downstroke, thin upstroke, and then a thick downstroke, like that. Or you can choose to do an entry stroke and make it a little bit more modern looking. Let me try that H one more time. There we go. Next we have J, and you can do this two different ways, with or without an entry stroke. So with an entry stroke, thin, thick, thin, and then without is just thick down and thin up, like that. Whenever you're actually creating words, you're probably most of the time going to end up with an entry stroke on your J at some spot just to connect your letters. So keep that in mind. They're basically the same thing, unless you decide for whatever you're doing that you're not connecting letters, less like handwriting and more just like printing, I guess. So again, K is one of those letters that you can do with or without an entry stroke, and there is a few different variations. And again, I'll just show you two. So the first one, without an entry stroke, is just a thick downstroke, thin upstroke, then into a thick downstroke, and then thin, and then back out thin, and then thick. Or you can do the entry stroke K, which I just really like the way that the loops look, so it's my favorite way to do it. So entry stroke, thick downstroke, thin, thick, thin, and I like to do a little loop, and then back down to thick, like that. The loop is not necessary. You can do it plain, or you can combine any of these loops and non-loops however you like. And then L's are super simple, probably the most simple letter. So you've got your standard downstroke L, but most people will do L's with an entry stroke. So your entry stroke normally starts more towards your X height for your L, just up thin and down thick, and that's your L. Next is P. Again, you can do a very simple P. Now your P will start at your X height line, and you'll go down thick, and then you'll come back up and create your loop. Thin, thick, thin. So that's just a simple P. P I prefer is a little fancier, of course. I messed that up. Let's try that again. So thick, and then up thin, and you can stop there. So thin upstroke, thick downstroke, and then your curve. So that's your P. And some of these letters might look a little short, so you can extend them up just a little past your X height for these letters, which a lot of people do. So we'll just show you the P done like that. So more like that. But this is the thing about hand lettering, is we have all these rules in place to practice with, and then once you get more used to doing the hand lettering and getting more practicing in, then you can decide when and where to break these rules. So you will get better at knowing when to extend past your lines and when to stay within them. So next is sort of the opposite of the P, which is Q. So we start on the right side of the letter in a thin upstroke, then a thick downstroke, thin upstroke, and then a thick downstroke, and then up into a thin upstroke, back towards the letter, and then back up. And that's a Q. But you can do a more simple Q, like just like that. So T can just be a simple downstroke, and then an upstroke, and then across. Or you can do an entry stroke, which, as I mentioned for your J, and it's the same for a lot of the other letters, you will have entry strokes if you're connecting all of your letters, or most of your letters even. Oh, I did that one wrong too. So I put my entry stroke up too high, as though I was doing a K or B. So your entry stroke for your T would have to be lower down at your X height. So at your X height, then thick downstroke, thin upstroke, and then now we're going to do Y. So with Y, again, there's two different versions that I'll show you. A more simple version. So we're going to start at the X height, thick downstroke, thin upstroke. I'm going to end it right between the baseline and the X height. Then I'm going to start again at the X height, just beside there, thick downstroke, all the way to the descender line, and then back into a thin upstroke, all the way up, back to your X height. Again, as I said, these letters can look a little short sometimes, so you can start them a little higher up from the X height, and I'll do that on this one. So for this one, I'm going to do an entry stroke, so I'm just going to add it here. Then I'm going to go into a thick downstroke, thin upstroke, then I'm going to start a new line as I did with the last Y, thick, thin, and then up. So basically the only thing that's really different is that you have an entry stroke, and again, that's a preference, and if you're connecting your letters, you will always have an entry stroke. But you can also choose to do your Y's more simple, which is just like that. So no loop. Now, finally, our last letter that we're going to learn within these ascenders and descenders is Z. So for Z, you're going to start with a thin upstroke, thick downstroke, and then you're going to turn into a thin upstroke right between your baseline and your X height, then thin, and then into thick right away, and then back into thin. Like that. And again, you can be a little fancier with your Z. You can start by having a loop that comes up in your, just between your X height and your cap height, and comes around. So thick downstroke, thin upstroke, thick into thin, and then thick into thin. But these extra curls are, as I said, extra, so it's really up to you if you want to do those. So these are all the lowercase letters with ascenders and descenders, and now we're going to move on to the rest of our letters. So that's it for part 1 of this tutorial. As I said, part 2 will be coming very shortly, so we can finish off our lowercase letters, and uppercase hand lettering will be coming shortly after that. So stay tuned for those videos. I hope you guys all have a super awesome day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!